In this video, I'm going to show you how to use n8n to create a rental appraisal bot. So what we're looking at today is the scenario of a landlord who has multiple properties in the UK but isn't keeping on top of the rentals. What this looks like is we have a Google Sheet and we trigger an n8n scenario to run. It goes into Google Sheets, it pulls those properties like we can see on here, and for every row in the Google Sheet, we access some property data for rents and do some property data for valuations of the rent, and then we'll pass that through some function, and at the end we put all of that information back onto the same Google Sheet, but in this case we put information in a separate tab, and then we show the landlord what the result looks like. So just for your benefit and my benefit, the properties and this properties sheet, so this is acting like our CRM and our data source. We gather all of the information that we need in order to call the API. So we need things like the postcode, the current rent, the market rent is retrieved or calculated by the API, and then we look at other things like the number of bedrooms and whether there's a living room and property size, the property type and different sizes. Now these other bits of information come in handy, but we'll look at that in a bit. Then the results we get are these rows of information where it tells us which properties are underperforming, which ones are optimal, and those that are overperforming, and it's all color coded, so at a glance you can tell the state of your portfolio. And there's a lot more that you can do in addition to this, but for today let's look at what n8n would has to look like. So I've already shown you with my draw.io diagram that we begin with the Google Sheet. So n8n, this is a manual trigger, it's not scheduled, but we can schedule this to run as often as we want. So it goes into Google Sheets. Let's have a look at what that would be would appear like. So I'm opening up this node, the Google Sheets node. The credentials are already pre-created, but if you need to use the credentials and you're not using the n8n cloud version, because in my case I've got the self-hosted, so I've got a Docker container running the n8n, you would have to configure some of this manually. In my case, because it's self-hosted, I have to configure the authorized redirect URIs to redirect back to itself, back to this machine that is running on, and there's something called a reverse proxy that uses ngrok to create the tunnel back to the machine itself. So there is some documentation on n8n's website that makes all of this possible to configure. So what do? Once that's configured and all of the permissions enabled, I then access the sheet that has the property portfolio, and the actual sheet that I retrieve from Google Sheets is a property sheet. So let me show you how you do that if you want to put any one of these nodes onto your canvas. So in my case, starting with Google Sheets. So the way to do that is on the right hand side, you click this plus, and then you're searching for Google Sheets, so you just type Sheets in there, and when it comes up you click Google Sheets. You have these options as to what you can do. In my case, I'm getting rows. I'm not trying to create a spreadsheet, I'm not deleting a sheet, I'm not appending yet. I'm not appending a row or clearing the sheet. What I'm doing is I'm getting the rows. So if you click get row, and that automatically just pops up this menu option, and with the get row, the credentials, I only have one credential saved for Google, so it's automatically populated it. And then the resource we want is a sheet from a sheet within a document. So the document is the Google Sheets document itself, and the operation is get rows. And then with this section here is to retrieve the actual document or the actual Google Sheets document. So in my case, I'm doing a Valuation portfolio performance review AI, and then the next section would give me the options of the sheets within that document. So I'm picking up the properties. And then if you want to add some filters, you can. In my case, for the one we're actually using for this exercise, I'm saying that the status only pick up rows where the status is empty. So I'm leaving this blank, and that's it. So let's execute the step and see what it brings back. Okay, so it's taking as long as it needs to. Guess what? It's brought back how many? It's brought back 49 items. Why has that happened? Okay, let's have a look. If we look at the sheet itself, on the properties row, there should only be 7 because the first row is the header row, but it's brought back 9. And I can explain why that's the case. The reason it's brought back 9 is that when Google Sheets run, it runs per a row. So it pulls back all of the rows from within the document, and then for each row it executes the next step. So in this case, it's pulled back 7 rows, and then within this one we've also got that same sheet pulling back things 7 times. So 7 times 7 gives you 49. So that's something to think about when you're working with Google Sheets within n8n. Suffice to say, if you use some of the other options, RPA options like Make or Zapier, they work slightly differently, but this is one that you should bear in mind. So let's delete that new one we added. So the behavior we just saw is the reason we've got this loop over items. So Google Sheets goes into the document, pulls down or retrieves 7 rows, and it runs those 7 rows sequentially. But as it's running those 7 rows, it's executing this loop over items. If we had a Google Sheet there, it would loop over that 7 times, which is why we had 49 items in the end. But for this session, just see it as n8n gets triggered, Google Sheets gets called, it pulls back 7 items in my case, or 7 properties, and then it triggers this loop over items. So you need this loop over items to force the rest of the workflow to be executed for each row that it receives. If you don't have this here, it get executed 7 times, and suddenly the next stage would then have all of the 7 items passed to it. So that was one of the challenges I had when I was setting this up, because previously I had this rental API directly after the Google Sheet. So when there was just one record, it was fine, it just flows through just one record. But when you've got multiple, it just Google Sheets just calls all of those columns or all of those rows, punches them together and pushes it into the next API, the next step. So that's something to bear in mind. If there's a behavior you're seeing that you're not expecting, it might just be that when Google Sheets is called, it's pulled back multiple rows, and each one of those rows is being merged into one and then used to call the next stage. So in my case, I've got a loop over items. Now, what do I do with the loop? As the loop runs, I pass an if statement here. So this if is to check, this is a condition to check if the postcode is defined, so i.e. the postcode is not empty, and the number of bedrooms is greater than 0. Why do I do that? Because I need the number of bedrooms for the query into the API, which is a property data endpoint. So if we look at this rent, you've got the postcode, which I mentioned, the number of bedrooms, and the property type. So that's important. This key here is the secret key that's used for calling the endpoint, and that secret key is defined in this edit fields node. So it's put in there so that I can do this demonstration and you can see pretty much most of what I'm referring to. So after we've collected this rent, so this rent here is collecting the open market rent, so the rent that's being charged for properties that are currently being marketed, and then this next node is pulling back a valuation. So with this valuation, this node actually uses all of the information that I mentioned within the property portfolio sheet. So imagine this is your portfolio, and what you are doing is you've updated your CRM with every single property you own and all of the information that I've specified here. So even the construction date and whether there's the type of finishing and whether there's any outdoor space. So all of this is required in order to get the valuation and get the correct valuation estimate. So the API needs that. And then once that's done, we have a function block which takes the information that has been retrieved from the previous steps and uses it to work out whether something's underperforming, overperforming, or any kind of recommendation that needs to be provided. So that is a function block because initially we wanted to use the AI to complete all of those steps, but the AI was just completely messing up with the results and its recommendation. And we went back to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said, actually, the AI is not good at doing calculations. We knew that, but it specifically said do the calculations separately. Now, once you've completed the calculations, you just get the AI to do the language and the nice bit, right? So we do the calculation with the function node. We pass the raw values into the AI, and we're using a 4.1 mini because this is just producing raw text, so it's not really anything too complicated. So this is a prompt, the system prompt. You are a UK property performance report assistant, and you'll be given structured data about property's rental performance. So we pass in here the JSON, and specifically if we look at the user prompt, we pass in specific values from the previous steps, as you would expect. So getting this node is the same. You just click this plus here, and then well, it's even at the top there, but you can just type in AI, and then you can find OpenAI. Just for ease, just do OpenAI, and that's it here. You click OpenAI, and then you pick what it is you want. In my case, I picked message a model, not create an assistant or any of these other ones, message a model. And then you click that, it comes in, and you configure it just as I've configured here. And that's it. So once that completes, the output from this step produces a content field, which I'll show you in a sec. So after the AI is triggered, we then call another function code node, and what we retrieve from that previous step is the content. So if and what we do with the information is, at this point we've called the AI, we've gotten all of the recommendations, and we've done all of the checks and queries against the relevant APIs and property data APIs. So this section is really combining all of that information into a format that I can use to populate the results sheet within the Google Sheet document. So once this completes, it gives me the relevant values that I need, and then for the rent result step, I then take all of those values and just plug them in the right places. And that's how we create the result page that you are seeing. Now, all of the emojis and those aspects to what we see, they're created in this first code function step. And once that's done, we update the portfolio sheet, which is the first one that contains the properties. And what we put in there is we're matching against the row number that comes from the first page, so that we're updating the correct row. So when we do the initial call to Google Sheets, it gives us a row number, and then at this point we use that row number to match the row that we want to update. So we're matching on the row number that comes from the first step, and then once that comes in, we push the market rent, we update the date it was reviewed, and those are the two things we do here. So just for the benefit of us, so that it's clear that this works and so you can see what's happening, we also have a wait for the loop. Just waits 1 second. Let me just show you what that looks like. So after time interval, wait 1 second. So let's run this so that you can see what the whole thing looks like. So let's go into the results page, and we can just delete all these. Oops. Okay, let's now trigger the. Okay, so let's execute the automation. Let's go. So let's pull the first record, and then it's going through. Now it's going into the AI step. Now it's going to update the result. So let's see what it's done. Yeah, you can see it's saying it's underperforming. It's giving me the address, it's giving me the amount, and it's giving me the recommendation. So by the time it's finished, you'd see all of the different performances. So as a rental portfolio landlord, you'd see at a glance what's working, what's not working, what needs to increase and what needs to change. And you can schedule this to run as often as you want. You might want to do it every month or every quarter or twice a year, but you no longer have that issue where it takes multiple years before you realize that things are not working or you are losing money, because the amount of rent you receive determines how much you can raise and how you can finance some of these deals. So it's a very straightforward system. We're using n8n, and we've tapped into Google Sheets as our database, and we've used really clever code and different APIs to help us come up with this information. And this can happen on the fly. Some estate agents provide this to their clients as a benefit that they offer, with the view that they can get some business down the road. Others can use this to appraise and keep on top of their own properties. So thank you very much. If you need this, just DM me or put a comment under the video, and I'll give you the source that you need for this. So until next time, keep winning, keep investing, and keep doing the thing that makes you happy.